Hey, how's it going, universe? Welcome to another daily movie review. This is Shaun from Zoobox, and today we're going to be talking about Kill Bill, the whole bloody affair. That's right. I have the individual movies, but I had never seen the whole bloody affair. Why had I never seen the whole bloody affair? Because it's never really come out. Back in 2004, I guess Tarantino kind of debuted a cut in at the Cannes Film Festival. And then in 2011, because of rights issues and whatnot, he was able to actually show it at his own movie theater, the New Beverly. Even that print actually still had the French subtitles on it, so you had to watch it that way. And it ran for a month, and I think he showed it like maybe a couple other times, but it's never been in wide release, wide distribution. And even though he's been talking about it for years. I remember back in the day, I think it was in between Volume 1 and Volume 2, he was talking about releasing the whole bloody affair. It's always weird. He does that kind of shit a lot. He just kind of says, he throws things out there and then people are like waiting forever. And it just never materializes. This is one of those things. Never really materialized. So basically, you can find the whole bloody affair. It's out there, guys. You gotta be able to, you gotta go ride up on those high digital seas. They're out there. There's cuts of it out there. So basically, I assume what people did was either took notes or found out what differences in the cut were and made their own version. It's mostly the same movie. There's a few fundamental things that actually changes the experience, especially if you had never seen it before. I'd really be interested to show somebody the whole bloody affair that had never seen Kill Bill. Because the big thing that they change is that they don't reveal that the daughter is alive, that BB is alive at the end of Volume 1. That's a big thing. That's a big change. So it makes the reveal at the end of the movie actually shocking, right? You would be just as surprised as the bride to find out what was going on. But yeah, it's largely the same. It's mostly just like extra gore. The Crazy 88 fight is now in color, and it cuts out her blinking to change it from color to black and white, and so on and so forth. You get to see Louis, what's her name? Actress Julie Dreyfus, Sophie Fatale. You get to see her arm get cut off. She does get her other arm cut off in the when she's in the trunk of the car at the end of the movie before she gets rolled down to the hospital down the embankment. Which is kind of it's I understand why they cut it out of the theatrical cut, because it makes the bride slightly unlikable. Because it's almost like you're like, this is maybe a little too far, just because you've personalized this character of Sophie Fatale. She's not cannon fodder. She's not just another person or whatever. But as you know, Kill Bill, directed by Quentin Tarantino, written by Quentin Tarantino, and Uma Thurman has a writing credit as well. Because whether or not she was the inspiration for the bride, if that was her only contribution, or if they talked, I have no idea. Stars Uma Thurman, David Carradine, Vivica A. Fox, Daryl Hannah, Julie Dreyfus, Sonny Chiba, Chiaki Kiriyami, Michael Bowen, Michael Parks, Michael Madsen, and others. Lucy Liu, who's not in this movie. It'd be easier to tell you who isn't in Kill Bill. So I hadn't watched this in probably 5 or 6 years. And usually when I watch Kill Bill, I'll end up watching both back to back. So the 4-hour experience wasn't that foreign to me. But I was surprised to see, just like sitting down and watching it, how organically one flows into the next. Like, I was always of the mind, because Kill Bill Volume 2 is a much different movie than the first half. It's more going for like a spaghetti western kind of vibe. More Man with No Name almost kind of vibe in a revenge sense. The first one is much more overtly inspired by, or actually not just spaghetti western Volume 2, but also just the samurai movies and the kung fu movies of the 60s and 70s. And it's much, the pace and the tone is just different. And then in Volume 1 is much more like extroverted. It's much more like over the top, much more anime inspired, exploitation movie inspired. So there is kind of a tonal difference, but the way that the movie is building towards, when you watch the kind of different genres is it's going through in Volume 1, once you get to Volume 2, it feels like a natural progression. You're almost going through different eras of a style of storytelling or cinema. And that was cool. It was cool to experience that way because even just not having to swap the discs and then not having to stop and have the kind of that introduction that they do in the beginning of Volume 2 in the theatrical cut made the movie just flow really, really well. And I was happy to see that. Um, it's a cool movie. It's honest in a very superficial way. The most recent Zoobox Goes to the Movies, my brother Dan and I talked about There Will Be Blood. And we were just talking about kind of contemporary, Paul Thomas Anderson's contemporaries. Quentin Tarantino gets brought up. Tarantino is kind of a very surface level director. I'm sure there's things he seeds in there that, but they're all predicated on understanding the references. That's why most people were so taken with his work, I think, when you're younger. And then as you get older, the shine wears off a little bit because if you maintain some type of love of movies, you start watching the movies that he watched. And what's revealed is that Tarantino kind of just remixes a lot of stuff. And the things that make his movies interesting, that sets them apart, is his ability to write kind of engaging dialogue. Because Kill Bill, while there's a lot of stylistic stuff in here, it's not, and it's got definitely the Tarantino rhythm. He is directly pulling from a certain era. I would say if out of most of his movies, this one has the most un-Tarantino like dialogue. There's the cool one-liners and like kind of his quips and his pop culture references that he puts in there, but it's a much leaner script than a lot of his stuff. Cause he's obviously known for being kind of verbose and long-winded, which is something I'm very familiar with. If you watch these videos, I like being long-winded. So it's much tighter than that. It's much more of a cinematic experience in that sense. And, it's aged really well. I had a really good time watching it. And because it had been a few years, but I've seen this movie so many times, I can quote most of the movie out loud. Because I was just like everybody else. Well, most people. I know there's some contrarians back in the day. I knew a few that were not Tarantino fans, did not like Kill Bill, thought it was stupid. And I can see that. I can see that perspective because once you kind of separate yourself from it in time and have grown up a little bit, it's a very shallow movie. It's very straightforward. There isn't a lot of depth there. There isn't not a lot to read into. Like I said, unless you are aware of the film references, and then what you're reading into is not like subtext. What you're reading into is, oh, that's from that movie I saw. That's cool. Oh, look how he reappropriated this thing. Oh, look at this angle, this setup, this music cue. That's what Tarantino does. I mean, he's definitely, I would say, after Inglourious Bastards, that's like another chapter in his filmography. Those are a little bit richer, but they're still kind of operating on the same. When I say shallow, I feel like that's kind of a misnomer. It's not really a correct way to put it. That's the word that comes to mind. It's just, there's just not a lot outside of what you're literally being told or shown. I think there are broader themes. You could suggest that the themes are broader and there's things to think about with those themes, but the actual like subtext, very straightforward, if there's any at all. I think probably his most nuanced movie in terms of having subtext and having kind of this meta level commentary that feels like specifically seeded into the movie and you can actually understand and read into, is probably Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because that works on a meta layer that a lot of his movies just frankly don't. I think Django, I guess you can make some sort of argument that there's obviously kind of a meta layer there, but it's not really subtext. It tells you what the subtext is, and Kill Bill is no different in that respect. It's just straightforward. Yes, we could talk about a mother's rage and maternal instinct, but at the same time, honestly, it's just on the surface. I mean, she says that, she talks about that, so it's not like they're not holding their cards back. There's some great sequences. This time I noticed how much I really love Daryl Hannah. I think Daryl Hannah is kind of the secret MVP of this movie with her character Elle, the eye patch wearing assassin. She was really great. She's the one that it just she is really delivering kind of this perfect hammy performance in certain moments, like when she's talking about how she killed Pai Mei. They're in the trailer, her and the bride, and they're about to face off. She's like, "I killed your master." Like, it's so good. She just executes it perfectly, and which was weird because I don't like mind Daryl Hannah. I've just never been a huge Daryl Hannah fan, and this is the most performancey performance I've ever seen her give. This is a very unique performance for her. Her physicality is different. Her voice is even a little bit different than her normal voice, which is it was a nice, pleasant surprise because it's not something I thought of very often. I suppose when watching this in the past, everybody else is solid. They're all doing great work. David Carradine feels like the role he was meant to play. It's one of those things that kind of Tarantino has been able to do for a few of these few actors, obviously famously John Travolta in Pulp Fiction. It feels like the same kind of thing where it's just like the perfect intersection of ability and a writer, and he delivers. Bill's a great character. Well, a great character. A great Tarantino character. They're not. That's the thing. Like, you can go back to these things and you're just like, these are just not very rich characters, and there's not a lot to hang your hat on other than just the affect of them. And that's, I think, as like I said before, that's why Tarantino doesn't necessarily age. They don't grow with you. They don't age with you. Like something that I know I've been talking about a lot, but something like Kubrick would make. Ending of a Kubrick movie or even a Paul Thomas Anderson movie. Those movies kind of grow with you and become different experiences as you get older and you have more context for the world. I would say Tarantino's can do that on a superficial level, like, because you have to be a film fan. You have to understand the references that he's pulling from, or sometimes just wholesale ripping off. And then you get a little bit more out of it on like a nerdy technical side. But as just a story that grows and says something about the human condition, not so much. Not so much. But I enjoyed my time with it. Coming back to it, it was interesting. It's the first time I ever had watched the Crazy '88 fight in color, and what was weird? I actually kind of missed the black and white when it switches to black and white, because it just kind of felt appropriate based on all like the genre shifting they had been doing in the movie. It just was another like weird quirky layer, and it almost felt appropriate. So I actually kind of missed it. Not that I have a problem with the gore and all that stuff, because apparently, as the legend goes, they did that to avoid an X rating. Supposedly, that's what they said. I don't know. But I found myself kind of missing it. I wish that it was still there, even in this cut, because the adding the extra, like the color, didn't like really add anything to it. It didn't feel like all that much more visceral. And yeah. Well, what else could I say about this? There really isn't much else to say. The 5, 6, 7, 8s are a great band. I really like them a lot. And yeah, that's gonna do it for me today, I think. Not a whole lot to say, because everybody's seen Kill Bill a million times. If you can get your hands on The Whole Bloody Affair, if you have not seen Kill Bill in a long time, you can there's a version, you can find it out there. It's out there. I'm not telling you where to look, but you can find it. It would be definitely, it's the way I would recommend revisiting the movie, because I do think it makes a much more interesting movie. If you got 4 hours to kill, I know that's tough. We had a babysitter. My mom took our kid overnight, and that's the only way we're ever going to get a 4-hour chunk of time all at once to watch something. So that's how we did it. That's how we did it at this house. But yeah, I would recommend this. This would be a good way to revisit it, because it's especially if you're very familiar with it, or not. Actually, yeah. If you have somebody in your life who's never seen Kill Bill, show them this one. I want to know if the BB scene, if the reveal of her daughter being born, or being still alive rather, is impactful, or if it just comes off as shallow, I don't know. I can't tell. I've seen it too many times to really be able to separate myself from that information and that experience. So that'd be interesting. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we will talk to you tomorrow about something. Who knows? Whatever. Goodbye.